Mr. Speaker, this island of Mayaguana truly is special. And for centuries, many generations of Mayaguanans remained in this natural, pristine environment. And yet in a single term, the Progressive Liberal Party, in signing the original agreement with the I Group, could have changed for perpetuity the ability of these Mayaguanans to occupy and yea possess substantial acreage of their land in this beautiful island. Under the original I Group agreement, Mr. Speaker, some 9,999 acres of land in Mayaguana, almost 25% of Mayaguana's total land, was on the table for acquisition by the I Group through its, yes, joint venture with the government of the Bahamas, and I'll speak to that. There was 5,825 acres of land conveyed to the Mayaguana Development Group. That was conveyed outright. And the balance of the land would be conveyed if the group fulfilled certain commitments. For instance, if the group had completed the airport, then they would get the 2,087 acres of land that was not conveyed. And if they fulfilled the original development that was in the heads of agreement, then they would get another 2,087 acres of land. And so, Mr. Speaker, if the original agreement was executed in full, there would have been 9,999 acres of very prime and significant land that would not be available to Mayaguanans, average Mayaguanans, in terms of the ability to buy and or occupy, because it would have been a part of the development of this, this project. Under the new amended, modified heads of agreement, the I Group has been able to keep 2,912 acres of land, 2,912 acres of the original land that was conveyed to them, the 5,825. 2,913 acres of the land has to now be reconveyed from that group to the government of the Bahamas. And they have a right to acquire back this, to acquire back 2,913 acres of land in a series of 9 options once certain conditions are met. Now, I think what is important, Mr. Speaker, to note here is that while they have the option to acquire back 2,913 acres of land in a series of 9 options, they cannot do so. All of that land is not the same land that was originally conveyed to them, because some land which we have taken off the table have special interest to ourselves, and I will speak to that a little later on. So some 4,174 acres of land to which the I Group had a right in their original agreement, that right has been surrendered under this new and modified agreement. So, Mr. Speaker, if you look at this map here, you will see many color-coded areas along the coast of Mayaguana. And all of those color codings represent development options for the I Group in respect of Mayaguana under their original agreement. all of them. And so all along the northern coast, the southern coast, the western coast, you would have seen where options existed for the I group to pursue their development under that 9,999 acres of land prospect in Mayaguana. This is what existed. Under the modified agreement, the I group now has kept 2,912 acres and have the option of acquiring 2,913 acres of land in 9 options once they meet certain conditions. So, for example, if they start the airport within 6 months of the agreement being executed and complete the airport within 18 months, they have the ability to acquire under option 1 350 acres of this land here as part of the new and modified agreement. And once the agreement is signed from the date of that agreement. If they then go on to complete the airport terminal, started in another 6 months and then completed in 18 months, then they have, under option 2, the ability to acquire a next set of land. And the agreement has been, I'll tell you now. Under option 2, that's 130 acres. It's in the agreement. It's all laid out in the agreement. Okay, and each option to acquire land has some benchmark associated with it that speaks to your acquiring additional portions of land. Now, what again I say, Mr. Speaker, is important to note is that notwithstanding they have the ability to acquire the same 2,913 acres of land in terms of quantity, they do not have the ability to acquire the same 2,913 acres of land in terms of quality, because there were some portions of the original land that they had options to that have been taken off the table. And they've been taken off the table because in the one instance, if we allowed them to acquire all of those lands under an original agreement, essentially what would have happened is that we would have ring-fenced the residents of Mayaguana into just the interiors of the island.
What's the point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I believe that the member for Marco City is really misleading Parliament when he says that. I'm giving you my point of order, Speaker.
No, how is he misleading?
I'm about to say, Mr. Speaker, he's misleading Parliament when he says that land was already conveyed to the I group. He knows that is not so. Land was conveyed to a Mayaguana Investment Development Company, which is a company 50-50 owned by the I Group and the Hotel Corporation. No land is being conveyed to the I Group. And he knows that is not the case.
But Mr. Speaker, with the greatest respect, and I heard sitting at his seat, the member from McCall using words about pathological liar, him?
That's what I said.
Him?
That's what I said.
The Lord and the church be with you.
And you too.
The pressure is on.
I understand. Mr. Speaker, I did not seek to, nor in the course of my discussion try to convey anything of the sort. I said that 5,825 acres of land under the original agreement was conveyed to, and I have it written here, the MID. That's the Mayaguana Development Group. And so I'm not. It's the.
Honourable member, chair, address the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Michael, you're going to have an opportunity.
Mayaguana Investment Development Group. Okay, but let me finish my speech, because you will have your opportunity to speak. Okay, And Mr. Speaker, so what would have essentially happened is that in the acquisition of this property, this 9,999 acres.
No, Honourable Member, take your seat.
Yes, sir.
And not only the Honourable Member, I believe that there are thousands of other Bahamians would like to hear what the Honourable Member has to say. He's the first speaker, and so the other 39 members would have an opportunity to speak. Honourable Member for Marcus City.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Speaker, if the Mayaguana Investment Development Group, of which the government would be a 50% shareholder, were to be allowed to acquire this 9,999 acres of land, it would essentially ring fence in the residents of Mayaguana. Mr. Speaker, it seems strange to me that members opposite would want to boast about roping themselves into the point that I'm now making, which is that if you take Pirates Wells under the original agreement, Pirates Wells would have had no opportunity to expand west or east, and would only have had opportunity to expand south. And what is south? South is swampland that the government of the Bahamas, with a non-Bahamian concern, would be proud to tell the Bahamas they are 50% owners in an enterprise that made the residents of Pirates Wells only capable of expanding themselves into swampland. And that's what he got up here to do. But the member for Golden Gates got up here to raise a point of order on. Again.
Your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, this is important because the member again seeks to mislead Parliament. First of all, there's an agreement in place, the original agreement, which calls for access and land being sold to Bahamians as well as foreigners. There's no such thing as Bahamians cannot access land in this development. This development is for Bahamians, and it is explicit in the agreement. It is for Bahamians and foreigners to be able to purchase there.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Speaker, no, this is important, Mr. Speaker.
No, you're making a contribution now.
This is not a contribution. I'm saying
I
that.
didn't dispute anything I said,
Thank you, Honourable Member.
Mr. Speaker, and I say it again, that the agreement that they signed provided for the alienation of 9,999 acres of land to the Mayaguana Investment Group, of which they were 50% holders, and therefore by doing so, limited the residents of Pirates Wells to being able to expand that community only south and into swampland. That's what I'm saying, Mr. Speaker. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, we have taken off the table in respect of the land that we have clawed back. We've taken off the table their ability to have access to environmentally sensitive land. Environmentally sensitive land, such as is found in Curtis Creek, which is a turtle nesting ground, an area, very sensitive area. Mr. Speaker, what is so, again, interesting about this fact is that the member Parliament for Golden Gates has no difficulty, again, boasting that, yes, we are 50% part owners of that proposition that would give access to this project to that environmentally sensitive land. Well, we don't have to worry about that anymore, because in this new amended and modified agreement, that has been taken off the table. Under this new agreement, Mr. Speaker, the force majeure clause, which enabled the I Group in February of 2008 to invoke that clause as a consequence of the global economic crisis, in particular the recession in the United States agreement, that clause has been amended to be stated as a traditional force majeure clause, one that has to do with natural disasters and acts of war and civil unrest and these kinds of things. Could you imagine an investor having an agreement with the government of the Bahamas, any investor, inclusive of Christie International and those, having an agreement with the government of the Bahamas that says, oh, you know, if they have a downturn in the United States of America, I can invoke force majeure, and I therefore don't have to fulfill any obligation that I have under the agreement because of this economic downturn? That just doesn't, that is not and was not in keeping with the standard and traditional definition of force majeure. Also, Mr. Speaker, under the new modified agreement, a number of concessions that the I group has been clawed back, so that the I group under the new and modified agreement now has concessions traditionally given under the Hotel Encouragement Act, so that they do not have concessions for consumables, such as you cannot get duty-free concessions on in Freeport, Grand Bahama, and they do not have outright concessions on fuels other than fuel brought in during the course of the development of the airport in Mayaguana. So we have clawed back a number of concessions in respect of the original agreement. We've also clawed back that concession, Mr. Speaker, that gave that provision that made the I group development in Mayaguana a mini Freeport, in which they would have had the right to license businesses and do those kinds of things. So we would have had a Mayaguana kind of port authority under the original agreement. But we have removed that out of this agreement, Mr. Speaker, so that it is now the case that not only have we gotten back for the benefit of the people of Mayaguana and the people of the Bahamas substantial acreage of land, but we had also done so while we at the very same time clawed back a number of concessions which the group enjoyed under their original agreement. Mr. Speaker, it seems to me a very telling thing that Mr. Stephen Roy, who is a principal of the I Group, very amicably sat down with the government of the Bahamas and agreed to this renegotiating of the original agreement, agreed in the interest both of the Bahamian people and of the harmonious ongoing development of his project, their project there in Mayaguana, to reconvey this 2,800 plus acres of land, reconfigure what lands would be available to them in the course of their development, and reconstruct the manner in which their development would take place over time in respect of the fulfilling of certain conditions and the ability to acquire certain pieces of land. And to do so, to give Mayaguanans the ability, the opportunity, not only to own their land, to own valuable coastal land, beachfront land. I don't know if there's anywhere in the Bahamas or anywhere at all you could buy beachfront land for $650 an acre. Where do you think that's possible? I want somebody to find that for me. Find me a realtor who could get anyone anywhere in the world access to beachfront land for $650 an acre. Baker's Bay? 8 million. That's what I would have thought. But Mr. Roy and his group did this, Mr. Speaker, and I think that we ought to applaud them for their magnanimity in respect thereof. Applaud them for recognizing that they have to live with the residents of Mayaguana over time, and that it made sense for them in the course of their development to have a relationship with Mayaguanans that said, I respect your right to land in Mayaguana and your ability to expand your communities in a meaningful way, and also to enjoy the benefits of this development which we are pursuing. So we want to thank him and his group for agreeing to do so. And to thank, Mr. Speaker, the chairman of the Hotel Corporation and his group for the work that they did in renegotiating this deal. Mr. Speaker, it's become a staple of the members opposite and of their cronies that they put Bahamians first, that they are for Bahamians.
Point of order, honorable member for...
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, please, you know.
Mr. Speaker, I unconditionally withdraw the word cronies and replace it with supporters. Supporters. They put Bahamians first. That they believe now in the Bahamas. Now, this is interesting rhetoric that comes from them, Mr. Speaker. If this is the party that between 2002 and 2007 had no difficulty, they put Bahamians first, boasting that they had some $30 billion in foreign investment in the country. Foreign investment. $30 billion. They never boasted how much Bahamian investment they had. Never even spoke to it. Never hinted at it. But $30 billion of foreign investment, they said. They were the party, Mr. Speaker, that boasted that they had sold 15% more land to foreigners than the FNM did. Didn't boast about how much land that they were able to grant to Bahamians, as we can now boast in this term. Lots and lots of land granted to Bahamians. I believe the right honourable member for North Africa, your fingers must be tired now, signing off all those grants to Bahamians. Regular, no, sir, over the whole course of our term, he has steadily done so. Steadily done so. Steadily done so. You mean he have 1 and 2? He have 1 and 2?
Ask Branson what he got from me. Ask Branson what he got from me.
This is the group, Mr. Speaker, that lowered.
No, you must ask them.
That lowered.
No, ask why. I gave them land.
No MP
I gave them land.
No MP I get land. I give you land.
Honorable members, the honorable member for Marcos City still has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, this is a very interesting discussion. One member is saying to another member opposite that he's getting ready to give him land. And instead of him saying, you are not giving me no land, he's talking about who he give land to.
I'm showing you that both sides are the other. That's what I'm saying.
Mr. Speaker, this is the group that lowered its requirement
I got none.
of a PhD,
I appreciate that.
of a PhD to be the president of the College of the Bahamas so that a foreigner could be hired in that post. But they put Bahamians first. Yes, they were on a search. Listen, they were on a search for a president of the College of the Bahamas. And in their search, they could not find a Bahamian. We believe in Bahamians. Bahamians can do anything. They could not find a Bahamian qualified for that position, they said. And so what they did was they lowered the criteria, one of the criteria in that search, which was that you have a PhD. They lowered it to a master's so that a non-Bahamian could qualify for the job. Don't look shocked. You didn't know that happened, eh? That happened? This is after a Bahamian had occupied that leadership post for 25 years. And it was not a problem for them. But listen to me now. But we believe in Bahamians, and we put them first. I would have thought if you believed in Bahamian and put them first, you would have chosen a Bahamian with a PhD that maybe you thought maybe needed to grow in the position. I'm talking about them now, because this their cry, this is yours. Grow in the position as opposed to lower the standard that you set in order to put a foreigner in the post. But it wasn't a problem. Wasn't a problem. Anyway, let me move on. They had no difficulty hiring. We believe Bahamians can do anything. Bahamians first. They couldn't manage the airport. So, and I'm not complaining about it. They saw the Canadian group and put them in charge of the airport. We put Bahamians first. We believe in Bahamians. This is the group that had no problems appointing Mr. Marshall to be Director of Public Works. The last I checked, Mr. Marshall was not a Bahamian. Had no problem having a foreign group to redesign Bay Street and the new port. The Edo group. Hey, Mr. Right Honorable Member for North Abaco, you are doing a new city out south, right? Did you use a foreigner to design that? You have a Bahamian firm that is designing your city out south?
City out south.
But you do not put Bahamians first. But Bay Street, the principal touristic center of the Bahamas, required a non-Bahamian group to design it.
College students.
We put college students, put Bahamians first. This is the group who had no difficulty taking the Cable Beach Golf Course, and the Cable Beach at Nassau, and the golf course at Cable Beach, which my understanding is, had a provision in its conveyance that said it had to be held in perpetuity for the Bahamian people. They had no problem selling that, conveying that as part of the Bahama deal to a non-Bahamian group. Not a problem whatsoever. This is a group that to this day shamelessly tries to justify hiring Chinese to build TG Glover. That notwithstanding that Grand Bahama had been steeped in unemployment, and the construction workers in Grand Bahama was out of work, and that it would have only taken a 35-minute flight from Grand Bahama to New Providence to bring those good people to work on TG Glover. It was not a problem giving permits to a contractor to bring Chinese to build TG Glover. Ping Yong Sha, TG Glover. Not a problem. Shamelessly, we believe in Bahamians. We put Bahamians first. These are the folks who had no difficulty licensing Korean boats to fish in Bahamian water. Y'all remember that, eh? Korean boats. And now, I know there is a AN at the end of Korean, but that ain't Bahamian. Had no difficulty doing it. You let this right honorable member and the Free National Movement license any foreign boats to be in these waters. You watch the yeoman cry you'll get from that side. You'll never get the end of it. But I had no difficulty with it. I believe one of them boats still here. As a matter of fact, the last I checked, one of those boats had been acquired by the fellow who tried to establish the phantom company Pegasus in Freeport. And he was going to use that to treasure hunt. But it was not a problem. We put Bahamians first.
Chinese, Korean.
This is the same group who went City Market. Well, that was Winn-Dixie then, eh? It was up for sale. City Market, right? Winn-Dixie was up for sale. They approved and had no difficulty approving a Barbadian group. Now, Barbadian B, they are Bahamian and Barbadian start with B, that's true. And they all end with IANS. but they're not the same thing. No difficulty. Have a Barbadian group acquire, and you know, when you think of the Right Honorable Member for a food store, when you think of the Right Honorable Member for Farm Road, I would have thought he would have taken that occasion to say, listen, man, this is an acquisition which Bahamians should make. Let's get all the taxi drivers together. Let's get all of the straw vendors together. Let's pool these resources and let them buy that food store.
Like we did with the port.
Like we've done with the port. But no. Let the Barbadians have it and anyway, city market. It's the same group that has 3,000 acres of BAIC land. Look at that island fresh dairy. 3,800 acres. Why I keep shortening it? It was 3,800 acres of farmland that was conveyed to. No, man. No. That was conveyed. They attempted to convey it for $1 an acre to a non-Bahamian group. It was what? Yeah, but it had non-Bahamians in it too. Yeah, well, that's the point we make. For $1 an acre. And so now, Mr. Speaker,
That's prepared farmland now.
prepared farmland. Prepared farmland. This is the group who believe in Bahamians, who had no difficulty exchanging a most valuable piece of property at Winding Bay for less than valuable property to foreigners. What? The property is going for $4 million an acre now? No problem. Same group, Mr. Speaker, that had no difficulty renting bleachers to foreigners for $1 million. But it was $2 million. From foreigners. Renting bleachers from foreigners. Same bleachers today, which we contract out a Bahamian group to use for the Junkanwan National Festival on an annual basis. As a matter of fact, the last I checked, I used to be a columnist in the days when they were renting those bleachers from the foreigners, The fellas was even complaining that they had some foreigners on forklift that was carrying the bleachers to Bay Street to set up. It's the same group, Mr. Speaker. It's the same group who put Bahamians first, who love Bahamians, who believe in the Bahamas, who, if you had gone to Bimini during the... No, yeah, I'm getting to it. You had gone to Bimini. I told the story in here before. Man, listen, I went to Bimini.
Yeah, your point of order?
I was talking about the Mexicans employed at Bimini Bay. That was an agreement.
Yes.
He just... Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, yes, point of order, but the honourable member hasn't said anything yet.
Yes, did, sir.
What I say? I was trying... You see what coming? You see what coming? And this is the same. I went to Bimini to visit Bimini to speak at something. I went to the airport on my way back to Freeport. Freeport, where construction workers were looking for something to do because the hurricane had mashed them up. And I got to the airport, and all I could hear was, "Buenos dias, señor. Solo hablo poquito de español, señor." I mean, these guys it was in the hundreds. Returning home with that money in their pocket. Well, not a problem. Not a problem. Every one of them, I believe, got work permits under their charge. And the member of parliament for Bimini, West End and Bimini, was a minister of tourism and a Grand Bahamian too. Who could have known how troubled Grand Bahama was and could have found a way to get some construction workers across the road?
Point of order, honourable member for West End.
Mr. Speaker, point of order.
Honourable member for West End and Bimini.
Point of order to the member for Marcos City. If he's unaware, the agreement to allow for the Mexican employees was signed in 1998 by the then Free National Movement government, not the Progressive Liberal Party government. And the Progressive Liberal Party subsequently discussed with the developers scaling back the project that we had at the time opposed.
Point of order, honorable member, right honorable member for North Africa.
The Free National Movement government never agreed for Mexican workers to come into Bimini. Never, ever. It is non-true. It is non-truth.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable member for Western and Bimini.
The member for North Abaco, whether or not he wishes to be technical, they agreed to the foreign workers, and they were Mexicans that came in, Mr. Speaker. We met them working. We met Biminites opposing it. We met Grand Bahamians opposing it. And we called for people from Grand Bahama to go there and work, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Mr. Speaker, listen to me. Mr. Speaker, I don't have any difficulty. I have no difficulty, because whatever he says, on my way back to Freeport, I only saw foreigners at the airport. Hundreds of them at the airport, heading back. Heading back. And they put Bahamians first. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the point that I make remains the same. That when you match their rhetoric with their actions, the two do not compute. The two do not compute, Mr. Speaker. The two do not compute. Mr. Speaker, you know, I will not pay attention to him, but I have to let you know this much. I have to let you know this much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you might want to hear this one too, Mr. North Abaco. Even if I had a reason to run from Freeport, if I had a reason, my reason was taken away when one of your sitting members of Parliament and one of your running candidates in this election told me that y'all had a survey that showed that I was ahead in Marco City. Your sitting member of Parliament and a candidate in this election. Challenge? 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 That's right. Mr. Speaker, you can contrast what they say and do versus what we have done on behalf of Bahamians. And we, Mr. Speaker, we, Mr. Speaker, you know, Mr. Speaker, you know, you really ought not to be tempted. You ought not to be tempted. Yield not to temptation. I can yield not to temptation. Yes, I'm gonna. I ain't gonna yield to temptation. I'm not gonna yield to temptation. Mr. Speaker, the devil is a liar. Put him in the fire. You know, somebody saw me the other day buying some crabs, right? Because I was getting them for my mother. I said, yeah, I'm buying crabs. Can go put these in the pot on the petty heat and cook them so we can eat them. Mr. Speaker, the reality is that what we are here today doing demonstrates what delivering for Bahamian people is all about. That we have been able to modify this agreement, and in the course of modifying the agreement, to claw back, get back, obtain back thousands of acres of land for the people of Mayaguana and the people of the Bahamas, so that it might be available to them and not available to them through some conduit of some joint ventureship which they would have had with any foreign entity, but that they would have access to in their own right, because the government of the Bahamas, the Free National Movement government of the Bahamas, has successfully renegotiated this agreement. And I believe that Mayaguanans, past, present, and future, are rejoicing today because this has happened. Okay, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And this, Mr. Speaker, what we are doing demonstrates concretely who believes in Bahamians, who believes in the Bahamas. Because I want to repeat, Members opposite, during the elections of 2002, were all about the place saying how wicked it was. Well, let me take that back. Saying that it was wrong for the Immovable Properties Act to have been repealed, and that the International Persons Landholding Act was facilitating ownership by foreigners of land in the Bahamas. And when they came to office, they did absolutely nothing about it. Absolutely nothing. They basked in the glow of every piece of land sold under their tenure. And then we came back to office and took our own International Persons Landholding Act and amended it to reduce the amount of acreage that a non-Bahamian could purchase for residential purposes without coming to the government for a permit from 5 acres to 2 acres. Who believe in Bahamians? Who believe in the Bahamas? People who believe in the Bahamas create a prescription drug program so that their elderly and children have access to the critical medication that they need. Creates job and skill opportunities for thousands, unemployment benefits for thousands, schools for the children of the country, medical facilities and upgrades for the children of the country. When you believe in Bahamians, Mr. Speaker, this is what you do. So, Mr. Speaker, I say that we will continue to produce results where others only produce rhetoric. We will continue to make the Commonwealth of the Bahamas a much better, more modern, more productive, more prosperous, more peaceful place. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
The second, the right honourable member for North Abaco.
Speaking on the point of order before the seconder speaks, I just want to refer to the point made by the member for Vesta and Bimini. First of all, about the Bimini Bay project. First of all, it was my government which reduced the phases in Bimini to 1 phase before we left office. Yes. We did that, not yourselves. Secondly, we never agreed for the importation of Mexican workers. We agreed, which is usual in the hotel encouragement agreements, that specialist workers not able to be found in the Bahamas would be approved for work permits. That could not have been for semi-skilled and unskilled workers from Mexico. We never did any such thing. You did that, not us. Never did.